Hello friends, thank you so much for stopping by. If you're new here, my name is AJ, and I'm attempting to write and publish my first fantasy novel. Project Dark Water is a new adult fantasy adventure with a romantic subplot. And I think maybe the best way to describe it is if Pirates of the Caribbean met a little bit more Lord of the Rings and that was put into novel format. Maybe that isn't the best way to describe it, but all you need to know for now is that there are pirates, curses, magic, violence, and a little romance, though not necessarily in that order. I just really wanted to take a moment to do a bit of a writing challenge wrap up and where do we go from here kind of video. So if you're interested in hearing about the amateur writer's experience with a writing challenge and where Project Dark Water is now, then please get comfortable, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. As many of you know, we just finished the novel writing challenge season. This year has been particularly interesting because not only was there the NaNoWriMo challenge, but in response to some of the things about the organization, a lot of alternative writing challenges popped up. I took inspiration from the Pathfinders Writing Collective and did my pick my own path, so I chose my own writing challenge. Rather than trying to write 50,000 words in 1 month, I actually took the months of September through November to get 80,000 words in my manuscript. So that was really my goal. 3 months, 80,000 words, and then I was going to go from there. I did manage to get around 81,000 words by the end of November, so I guess I would call my challenge a success. Now, I did pick this challenge knowing it was going to be a bit of a push, but it was also modified because I knew how crazy things were going to get at the end of the year, how much writing was going to have to go into it to get to 80,000 words. And so if you want to call it rigged, that's okay. But honestly, I think at the end of the day, we should just celebrate in each other's successes because as long as there are no blank pages, I think we've done a good job. For those who are interested in the cold hard numbers and the analysis, let me just apologize beforehand. I didn't really do a good job at keeping track, not as much as a lot of other creators did. I'm a little bit of a hot mess. As a disclaimer, the book and my process is going to be a little bit messy before I figure everything out. But if you would like to stay, I can give you an overview of how things went and how I broke up the 3 months to get to 81,000 words. Let me give you the overall synopsis month to month of what I was able to accomplish. So I started in September, really just doing a preliminary organization, taking some of the ideas that I had brainstormed about the novel earlier, as well as taking some of the core scenes that I wrote before this fall and putting them all into one place and expanding on it to get some semblance of a storyline together. So September was my prep-tember, my preparation month, where I did the first pass at figuring out the kind of story I wanted to tell, some of the themes I wanted to touch on, and ultimately where I wanted to start and end the novel. And this bled a bit into October. So October, I finalized, if we can call it finalizing, an overall outline and a chapter outline. This was the first time I had attempted to outline anything, so it is far from perfect, but it really did help me along the way to have some level of a roadmap, even if I didn't follow my outlines to the T. And I definitely didn't completely follow the outline, but I knew where I had to go, and I had something written down for the major points that I needed to touch on in order to have a story. So October was the planning, and I also wrote in October. So September and October, I got a total of 40,000 words done in the manuscript, and that included adding a lot of the extra scenes that I knew I wanted to incorporate in the novel into the manuscript. So it wasn't a pure free writing of 40,000 words. November was primarily the free writing season. I wrote around 40,000 words to get my manuscript to the 81,000 words that it is currently sitting at. And this was mostly new stuff. maybe around 2,000 extra words from scenes that I had already written previously, but most of it was new. I honestly couldn't have done it unless I had that roadmap that I established in September and October. All in all, I was able to get Project Dark Water to draft 1. Honestly, forget about the word count. I think more importantly, I have a manuscript with a beginning, a middle, and an end. It is far, far from perfect, far from complete, but there are foundational elements to a story in draft 1. So I'm calling this draft 1. It is the first time I have gotten this far in a novel, so I am letting myself feel closer to an actual writer than I've ever felt before, even though there's still a lot that I have to learn. This brings me into the next portion of this video, which is to kind of provide a little bit of insight into the process, and honestly just talk about what I think are the most important successes after participating in this challenge, especially as an amateur writer. Rather than the word count, rather than having or getting to a point where I can call Project Dark Water draft 1, I think most importantly, I learned a bit about the tools and skills that will help me as a writer moving forward. Number 1, having a bit more of a plan. It was immensely helpful, especially at the end of November, to have that roadmap. And I know I've said it before, but it is something that was really, really essential for me being able to get to 81,000 words. Now, previously, I would go in blind to a story. I would have a bit of an idea. I would have a couple of loose-ish outlines, maybe a couple of sentences, and would go from there. And I think that personally, my writing style, I tend to quickly unravel. Just like in my life, I tend to unravel and get a little bit spirally when things start to go askew. So having that outline is kind of like just having a plan, having that to-do list, being able to check off these important bits, even if it doesn't follow the outline that I initially set up. It is still so valuable that moving forward, I will probably plan my projects a little bit more than I did previously. The other big takeaway from these 3 months is that I think I have found a system to help me write more consistently and be more productive in my writing moving forward. Now, I know Cody might have talked about this in his November wrap-up, but for me personally, rather than establishing a regimented routine for writing, I think it's more helpful to have a writing habit. Now, I'm making these distinctions because when I think of a writing routine, I think of having it put into a schedule at a specific time, like an hour in the morning or an hour at night would be a routine. So you wake up at 6 in the morning, get coffee, 6:30, start writing. I know that there's a lot of routines out there, that there's a lot of successful writers with very successful routines. I think where I am in my life right now as a writer and just as a person, a routine like that is not going to work very well, primarily because of the kind of work that I do. I think it's hard to stick with and establish a routine. I've tried and it hasn't worked so much. I think I have figured out a way for me to write more consistently and be more productive in writing my future drafts and projects. Cody might have talked about this on his channel as well in a wrap-up video, and he explained it a lot better than I can explain it. But ultimately, I think that rather than developing a routine, like a regimented time in my day to write, it's more helpful right now for me as a person and a writer to develop a habit. Like a to-do list, pick how many writing sessions I want to do in a day and go from there. So I know in November I did this 10 for 10 where I wrote for 10 minutes 10 times a day. That's not really sustainable, but what's sustainable is telling myself and giving myself the habit of writing twice a day, Monday through Friday, 10 minutes. That has shown a lot more success so far than the other routines that I've tried. So moving forward, basically, I'm going to plan my projects a little bit more in advance, and I'm going to set a habit rather than a routine to try to get about 2 sessions of writing in each day, Monday through Friday, and we'll go from there. It's okay if there's a day where you don't write. I know that's fine, but again, just want to establish and continue to do that habit. Now I just want to take a quick second to chat with you about what is next for Project Dark Water and where I am going from draft 1. I know we're in mid-December, but I want to take the rest of this month and through January to do some very light editing. I really just want to do some very minor housekeeping and quality control on draft 1 before I go into draft 2. It is a bit of a mess. And ultimately, the idea is to fix the current word swamp that is draft 1 and get it into a place where I am comfortable sending it to a critique partner or alpha readers or anyone who is interested in giving feedback. So I want to get it feedback ready. This means I'm going to do very minor quality control, not specifically for grammar or anything like that, but just making sure the necessary scenes are there and that it at least makes sense from my point of view so that when a reader gets it, it's not a hot soup of words. That's really all I have planned so far, is to take December and January, do a little bit of that housekeeping, and then sending it off for feedback. Hopefully by the end of January. Maybe sooner, but hopefully by the end of January. And after that, just gonna start the process again. Take the feedback, potentially get into draft 2, and then continue, and then at that point, figure out the steps from there. I still don't know if I want to try and traditionally publish or self-publish, but that is something I'm not gonna think about until the end of January. And then continue on for the rest of the year and try to make as much progress as possible. That's it for now. Thank you so much if you've made it this far into the video. I would love to hear how your writing progress is going, how your writing challenge went, if you participated in one. Also, always happy to chat craft. If you would like to reach out on any of my other social media accounts, the links are down below in the description of the video. Always happy to say hello to fellow writers and or readers, and I hope to see you around. Good luck, happy writing.